yung Shimmy's Barilla Sauce. Alexander, wait for you. Oopsies.
The most harmless things can be
Shimmy's that line to show. Alexander sagt, nicht aber das kann doch nicht wahr sein. Auge so. Oh, it's snuffy.
On December 16th, 2020, in Greensboro, North Carolina,
Alexander puts his snuffy on a toilet bowl.
AJ and Jackie
Alexander puts his snuffy on the toilet bowl.
23-month-old
Oh shit.
Jonathan, lovingly called Nugget.
No.
Both parents worked in emergency medical care, Jackie as a physician assistant and AJ as a paramedic, so they were no strangers to medical crises. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen. That morning was hectic. The couple had only 20 minutes to get both kids out the door. Amid the rush, Jonathan, like any curious toddler, managed to slip away unnoticed. Within those few moments, he likely grabbed a button battery from a key finder remote left on a countertop.
Oh
The back of the
no.
remote had come off, leaving the small battery exposed. No one saw him take it, and no one knew he had swallowed it. Jonathan spent the day at daycare, acting like his usual self.
What the heck? No.
He held his older brother's hand as they walked to class and showed no signs that anything was wrong. But by midday, teachers noticed something alarming. He had a nosebleed, and soon after he started vomiting blood. Paramedics were called and believed the bleeding was from the nosebleed irritating his throat. They advised Jackie and AJ to take him to a pediatrician for a closer look. When Jackie arrived, Jonathan seemed tired and pale, but his vital signs were stable. The
I think you might have swallowed the bag.
pediatrician examined him and suspected a viral illness, possibly bronchiolitis, which could explain the nosebleed. The doctor recommended fluids, rest, and monitoring over the weekend. By the next day, Jonathan developed a fever. His parents took him back to the doctor, who reassured them it was likely a virus. His chest x-ray was clear, and the result of the COVID-19 test came back negative. The advice remained the same. Keep him hydrated and let the illness run its course. The Huffs spent the weekend keeping a close watch on their son. On Saturday, Jonathan seemed to be improving. He watched his favorite show, Bubble Guppies, and even asked for some Doritos, which gave his parents hope that he was recovering. But by Sunday morning, everything took a devastating turn. Jonathan woke up with a high fever and suddenly started coughing violently. Then, he vomited bright red blood. AJ and Jackie, though trained in emergency care, were in shock. AJ immediately began performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation, while Jackie gave rescue breaths. But when she pulled away, she saw blood pouring from his mouth. AJ continued chest compressions as they waited for help, but Jonathan's tiny heart was struggling. By the time paramedics arrived, he was unresponsive. They rushed him to Moses H. Cone Hospital while Jackie followed in a sheriff's car, desperately hoping for a miracle. When she arrived, she was met with the news no parent should ever hear. Doctors had tried everything, but Jonathan had lost too much blood. The damage was irreversible. He was gone.
No.
An autopsy later revealed the cause.
Remember when he took a battery? Because he got curious and walked off. They didn't know he had taken it. What would have...
A button battery had been lodged inside him for 4 days. Slowly.
Yep. That's where the battery went. He must have consumed it. A coin battery. What? Yeah, that's where the battery went, and they just told it. The hospital told them it was a fever, but you couldn't really see it on.
Burning through his esophagus, intestines, and aorta. The battery's chemical reaction had caused severe internal injuries, leading to fatal bleeding. The battery had come from the key finder remote on their countertop. Something so small, yet so deadly. The Huffs were devastated. They replayed every moment, wondering if they could have done something differently. The weight of their loss was unbearable. As parents who had spent their lives saving others, they never imagined losing their own child this way. At Jonathan's funeral, a procession of fire trucks and ambulances lined the streets, symbols of the life he loved and the community that rallied around his grieving. of support could ease their pain. They had lost their little boy, and nothing could bring him back. Determined to prevent this from happening to other families, Jackie and AJ began raising awareness about the dangers of button batteries. They urged parents to secure devices containing these small batteries, store them out of reach, and tape battery compartments shut. After Jonathan's passing, Australia became the first country to enforce mandatory safety standards for products containing button batteries. While this was a step toward preventing similar tragedies, the Huffs knew that more needed to be done. They often wonder, what if Jonathan had been just a little older, or if they had noticed sooner? Could this have been avoided? What if the remote had been stored differently? Would he still be alive today? These painful questions remain with them. But by sharing Jonathan's story, they hope to spare other families from the same heartbreak. It was July.
Yeah, I don't know how they didn't see it, but they were told it was a fever. But the button batteries, yeah, you don't want to consume those. You might think they're harmless, but in reality, it burned through his esophagus, damaging the vital organs, killing him in the process. That's why he was bleeding so much. His organs were damaged by battery burning through his organs.
29th, 1998, in Oldham, Greater Manchester, when 16-year-old Jonathan
they told him it was a fever. How did that before? How did they not see it? That is a good question.
No one could have predicted.
That was not mentioned.
Deodorant. Jonathan was a typical teenager, active and healthy.
Deodorant?
But he was also very conscious of his hygiene.
Deodorant? This video is about those 7 deaths of people killed by everyday objects. Wait, this one's deodorant. They got it all wrong. Deodorant is just one thing you put in your armpits. How does that kill you? Because it contains propane. You breathe that in. It's bad for you. If you breathe in too much of it. Deodorant contains propane. That's why it's also flammable. Oh, so yes, deodorant can kill you. Because it contains propane.
So he developed a habit of using deodorant excessively.
Yeah.
After every shower, he would spray his entire body, sometimes using multiple brands at once. This became part of his daily routine, and he would often apply it in small, enclosed spaces like the bathroom. His father, noticed his son's frequent use of deodorant, and even commented on it, wondering if he was using it excessively.
You can die.
However, no one realized the danger. The aerosol cans contained chemicals like propane and butane, which in large amounts and without proper ventilation could build up in the bloodstream over time.
Yeah.
On the day of his passing, Jonathan followed his usual routine. But shortly after applying deodorant, he collapsed in his bedroom. His 17-year-old sister Natalie found him unconscious on the floor. Emergency services arrived quickly, but despite their efforts, Jonathan could not be saved. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. His parents were in shock. A post-mortem examination revealed the cause of death. Jonathan's blood contained 10 times the lethal level of butane and propane. The lack of ventilation in the small spaces where he applied deodorant had led to a buildup of toxic chemicals in his system, which caused a fatal heart attack. The coroner ruled his death as accidental, stating that Jonathan had unknowingly put himself at risk through his hygiene routine. His parents were devastated, struggling to comprehend how something as simple as wanting to smell good could have led to such a tragic outcome. Jonathan's case was the first of its kind in the United Kingdom. Unlike others who inhale chemicals intentionally, he had been using deodorant as part of his daily routine. His mother, Louise, became vocal about the need for clearer warnings on aerosol cans, criticizing companies for spending millions on advertising while neglecting to warn about the risks. Unfortunately,
hearing a TV noise upstairs at 2:48 in the afternoon. Oh, she's here. I didn't even know. It says my sister's here. I didn't even know she came home. She's actually here. I didn't even know she had come home. Oh, right, because it's on Do Not Disturb, isn't it? Oh. So notification never went off because I still have my things to Do Not Disturb. Sounds okay. Yeah, see, it was capturing because I like the sing one. There she is at 1:29. Didn't know she came home. She said I'm home at 1:29. I didn't even know.
Jonathan's story was not the last. A decade later, in 2008, 12-year-old Daniel Hurley collapsed in his bathroom after spraying deodorant.
Yeah, Link, see, that's one
He had a pre-existing heart condition that was triggered by exposure to the aerosol fumes, leading to a fatal cardiac
Lynx is
arrhythmia.
what I use too.
He had used Lynx, the same brand Jonathan favored. Despite these tragedies, the British Aerosol Manufacturers Association, or BAMA, claimed their research couldn't replicate the conditions that led to heart. They maintained that aerosol products had been used safely for decades, and that warning labels were already in place. However, experts like environmental scientist Dr. Peter Dingwall disagreed. He believed the existing warnings weren't enough, and that people needed clearer guidance on how to use these products safely. Jonathan's family continues to push for better labeling and awareness. His younger brother, Nathan, now an adult, makes sure to use deodorant cautiously, always ensuring proper ventilation. Jonathan's story is a tragic example of how something as common as deodorant can become dangerous when used excessively in confined spaces. It's a reminder to be aware of how we use everyday products, because sometimes even routine habits can have unexpected consequences.
He put himself at risk without even knowing.
It was December 2019 in Pitlochry, Scotland. Wallace Hunter, a 75-year-old grandfather, was on a weekend trip with his wife at the Pitlochry Hydro Hotel in Perthshire, Scotland. A retired precision engineer from Eaglesham, Renfrewshire, Wallace loved traveling and spending time with family. The getaway was supposed to be a relaxing break, but it ended in tragedy. On their last morning, Wallace went to take a shower while his wife packed their belongings. However, what should have been a routine task turned into a fatal accident. Wallace became trapped in a bathtub filled with dangerously hot water. The bath's mixer tap, which had been faulty for years, malfunctioned. The tap had a sensitive temperature control, and when the cold water stopped, the hot water continued running unchecked. The water reached extreme temperatures, and Wallace, unable to escape, suffered severe burns over 83% of his body. The first warning came when water from Wallace's bathroom started leaking into the room below. A guest reported the issue, prompting night porter Elena Suspidis to check. Initially, Wallace's wife assured staff everything was fine, but after a second call, she admitted her husband was trapped and in distress. She also mentioned that Wallace had dementia, making the situation even more urgent. Elena rushed to their room, hearing Wallace moaning in pain behind the bathroom door. However, the door was locked from the inside and opened outward, making it nearly impossible to break down. With no emergency release mechanism, staff tried to force entry using fire extinguishers and even a crowbar, but the door held firm. As the minutes passed, Wallace's condition worsened. His moans grew weaker. The rescue attempts continued for 45 minutes before Elena decided to call emergency services, despite Mrs. Hunter's initial hesitation. When firefighters finally arrived, it had been 90 minutes since Wallace first became trapped. Breaking through the door, rescuers found Wallace submerged in scalding water. The heat was so intense that firefighters had to wear protective gloves to remove him. Despite cardiopulmonary resuscitation efforts, Wallace was pronounced dead at 8:31 a.m. A post-mortem confirmed the cause of death was severe burns from the scalding water. His family, especially his wife, was devastated, not only by the loss, but by the horrific nature of his final moments. The pain of knowing he was trapped suffering while others desperately tried to reach him was unbearable for them. An investigation revealed serious safety issues. The mixer tap in Wallace's bathroom had been in poor condition for decades, with guests reporting temperature fluctuations that went unaddressed. The faulty tap allowed hot water to run when the cold water stopped, creating a dangerous situation. The bathroom door lacked an emergency release, making entry difficult and delaying Wallace's rescue. A different design could have saved his life. During the inquiry, hotel general manager Christopher Stanton admitted that the problems with the tap and the door had been known for years. Complaints had been ignored, and safety precautions that could have prevented the tragedy were never taken. Wallace's son, Keir, described his father's last moments as a nightmare. He called it a horror story, something his family would never recover from. The thought of his father trapped, suffering, and unable to escape was unbearable. The Hunter family took legal action, suing the hotel's previous operators for negligence. They claimed the hotel knowingly put elderly and vulnerable guests at risk by failing to fix the dangerous water system.
Oh my God.
Adding to their distress, they never received an apology or even a refund for their stay. Further investigation revealed that the company owning the Pitlochry Hydro Hotel at the time of Wallace's death went into liquidation in 2020. The new owners had not yet been involved in the inquiry, but Wallace's family hoped that the findings would lead to stricter safety measures in hotels to prevent another tragedy. Wallace Hunter's death could have been avoided. A faulty tap, a poorly designed door, and years of ignored complaints resulted in an unimaginable loss. His family continues to seek justice, not just for themselves, but to ensure no one else suffers the same fate.
Allowed hot water to run even after the cold water stopped. Yes, he was trapped in the bathroom.
On March 13, 2024, 93-year-old Elizabeth Vander Drift woke up in her sheltered housing in Regent's Park, North London, unaware that this day would take a tragic turn. Elizabeth had been living with dementia, a condition that made her forget small but important details, like when she last ate. Often she would search her home for food, unable to recall when she had her last meal. Elizabeth had lived a remarkable life. Born in the Netherlands in 1930, she survived the Dutch famine during World War II and later became a nurse, traveling through countries like Nigeria and Zambia. She was independent and fearless, traits admired by her daughter Marjolaine. Even as dementia took its toll, Elizabeth remained curious and strong-willed. But on this day, her illness would put her in unexpected danger. That morning, Elizabeth wandered into her kitchen looking for something to eat. In her search, she came across a pack of brightly colored laundry pods that had been left within reach. Their vibrant pink, orange, yellow, and green appearance made them look similar to sweets. Likely confused and hungry, Elizabeth mistook them for candy and bit into one. Immediately, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She struggled to breathe and became visibly distressed. Her body, already weakened by age and dementia, reacted severely to the concentrated chemicals inside the detergent. Realizing something was terribly wrong, an ambulance was called, and Elizabeth was rushed to the hospital. Despite medical efforts, her condition worsened over the next few days. On March 19th, 6 days after ingesting the detergent, Elizabeth passed away in the hospital. Doctors determined that she had developed aspiration pneumonia due to the toxic effects of the detergent, worsened by her pre-existing health conditions. An inquest led by Assistant Coroner Ian Potter revealed how a simple mistake had devastating consequences. He explained that Elizabeth's dementia made her vulnerable to misidentifying the laundry pods as food. The bright packaging, designed to be eye-catching, closely resembled a bag of sweets, making it easy for someone with cognitive impairments to mistake them for something edible. Potter also pointed out a serious issue. While safety warnings about these products had mostly focused on children, little attention had been given to the risks they posed for people with dementia. Current regulations aimed at preventing food-like packaging did not account for the needs of adults with cognitive impairments. A key concern was that the pods were easily accessible. While manufacturers included child-resistant packaging, there were no additional safeguards to prevent someone with dementia from opening them. Elizabeth's case raised urgent questions about whether enough precautions had been taken to protect vulnerable individuals. In response, Potter issued a Prevention of Future Deaths, or PFD report, addressing the United Kingdom Cleaning Product Industry Association, the Office for Product Safety and Standards, and the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. The report urged these organizations to review product packaging and consider better safety measures to prevent similar tragedies. The coroner emphasized that while child safety regulations existed, they did not fully address the dangers for older adults with cognitive conditions. He warned that without changes, more individuals could unknowingly put themselves in harm's way. Elizabeth's daughter, Marjolaine, supported the coroner's recommendations, hoping her mother's case would bring awareness to the overlooked risks of household products. She believed that her mother's story should serve as a call for change, ensuring that companies reconsider how these products are designed and packaged. Elizabeth's passing was officially ruled an accident, but it sparked an important discussion about product safety and the need for stricter regulations. Her situation highlighted the risks faced by elderly individuals with dementia, a group often left out of product safety considerations. Had the packaging been different, had additional safeguards been in place, or had more awareness been raised about these risks, this tragedy might have been prevented. These are the questions that now drive the push for change, so that no other family has to experience the same loss. Though Elizabeth had lived an adventurous and independent life, her final moments reflected a vulnerability that could have been avoided. Now, her story serves as a reminder of the urgent need to rethink how everyday household products are designed, not just for the general public, but for those who may struggle to understand the dangers they pose. It was July 2nd, 2005, in Beswick, a district of Greater Manchester, England. The Wilson family home was a warm and loving place where 4-year-old Brandon Clausen lived with his mother, Angela, and his 2 older sisters, Melissa and Paige. That Saturday afternoon was quiet and peaceful. Angela was outside assembling a new garden bench while her daughters played in the street. Everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Brandon was an adventurous and curious child. He usually asked his mother for food when he was hungry, but on this day, he decided to make a sandwich by himself for the first time. The kitchen was briefly left open, allowing him to try something new. He climbed onto the counter and reached for a small paring knife from the kitchen block. The ingredients were already laid out: slices of bread, a tub of margarine, and a package of cooked meat. Everything suggested he had been carefully preparing his snack, just like he had seen his mother do many times before. But then something went terribly wrong. While reaching for an item on the counter, Brandon lost his balance. As he fell, the knife in his hand pierced his chest, causing a severe injury. He collapsed to the floor and cried out for his mother. Angela heard his scream and ran inside. What she saw was devastating. Brandon lay on the floor, blood spreading across his chest. His eyes rolled back, and his skin turned pale. In a panic, Angela picked him up and ran into the street, calling for help. Neighbors quickly gathered as they heard her cries. A passing police car stopped, and officers attempted to help. They performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation while waiting for paramedics. When medical responders arrived, they rushed Brandon to Manchester Royal Infirmary, where surgeons tried to save him, but his injury was too severe. Despite their efforts, Brandon did not survive. In the aftermath, shock and grief filled the air. Angela was devastated, struggling to accept that such a simple act, making a sandwich, had led to such a heartbreaking outcome. An inquest was launched to understand exactly what happened. Investigators examined the scene carefully. The knife had fallen near a tub of margarine, and all the ingredients were left on the counter, confirming that Brandon had been making a sandwich when the accident occurred. Forensic experts analyzed every detail and ruled out foul play. The evidence pointed to a tragic accident. Brandon had fallen while holding the knife, causing a fatal wound. There were no signs of neglect or wrongdoing. One detail stood out: a missing cupboard door, which Brandon may have used to climb onto the counter. This might have contributed to the fall. During the inquest, Angela spoke through tears about her son. She explained that this was the first time he had ever tried making food for himself. She never imagined such a simple moment of independence would lead to tragedy. She described him as a loving and playful child who always found ways to make people smile. At night, he would climb into her bed, telling her how much he loved her. Angela was not alone in her grief. Her 2 daughters and her mother, Angela White, stood by her side. Earlier that day, the family had gone shopping and bought Brandon a new water pistol. He had been excited to play with it, unaware that the day would take such a tragic turn. After a thorough investigation, the police officially ruled Brandon's passing as accidental. The coroner, Leonard Gorodkin, confirmed this, stating that no one was at fault. A post-mortem examination supported the findings, showing that the injury was consistent with an accidental fall. The Bestwick community mourned Brandon's loss. Neighbors gathered outside the family's home, leaving flowers, toys, and handwritten notes. One card expressed sentiments of remembrance, describing Brandon as a sweet, loving little boy and wishing for the angels to take good care of him. Another neighbor wrote a poem in his memory, offering condolences to the grieving family. The tragedy of Brandon Clausen's passing was deeply felt by all who knew him. What started as an ordinary afternoon ended in an unimaginable loss, one that his family and community would never forget.
Oh my gosh. I was a kid as well. It wasn't even happened there. It was a freak accident. My mother was left in grief. And no one was at fault though. No one? Because it was a freak accident. The kid was making a sandwich. Well, the kid wanted to know he was hungry, but the mother, she was busy in the garden doing some gardening, and so he decided to make a sandwich by himself for the first time. And so, yeah, he grabbed a sharp knife out of the knife block, and decided making a sandwich. But then as he was reaching for one of the items on the bench, he lost his balance and fell. And he was holding the knife when he fell, so he accidentally stabbed himself in the heart, which is in the center. You might feel like it's on the left because that's where you feel it beating, but it's actually really in the center. So he stabbed himself in the heart, and his injuries were too severe, so he died. Oh my god. Yeah, his injuries were too severe. Because of course, yeah, he decided to try and make a sandwich by himself for a change. But then he lost his balance and fell. And of course he was holding the sharp knife as he fell. And he stabbed himself in the heart by accident. And his injury was, the fatal injury was too severe, and he died. The doctors did everything they could to save him, but it wasn't enough, unfortunately. There was nothing else they could do. His injury was too fatal. His injury was too severe.
In this chilling 6th part, we reveal 5 tragic deaths caused by high-speed crashes involving luxury cars. These are stories that expose the deadly consequences of speed, recklessness, and momentary lapses, where wealth and power couldn't save lives. Brace yourself for the heartbreaking realities behind some of the world's most luxurious cars.
There's a lot of luxurious cars.
Every Sunday, Shivaji Roy welcomed the dawn behind the wheel of a high-performance machine, part of a ritual he shared with a close-knit group of fellow car enthusiasts. But what began as another joy-filled outing ended in catastrophe near Dhamchur, West Bengal, when the Ferrari he was driving crashed into the side of a flyover. 43-year-old Shivaji Roy was a director of ML Roy Company Sanitations Private Limited, one of Bengal's oldest drainage and sanitation companies. A resident of Rashbihari Avenue, he lived in a 3-story home with his family. Known for his cheerful personality and love for high-performance vehicles, Shivaji had been part of an elite driving group called Club GT. The group's weekend tradition involved heading out of the city at dawn for high-speed runs on national highways, stopping midway for breakfast or coffee before heading home. Shivaji owned a Jaguar F-Type and a Harley Davidson. He had recently started test driving a Ferrari California T he was planning to purchase from a friend. On the morning of June 3rd, Shivaji joined 6 other drivers, along with family members, for another run. The convoy included luxury cars like a Lamborghini Gallardo and a BMW 180. Shivaji's 17-year-old son Shreyan rode with him on the way out, but switched cars during the return so that Ashna Surana, 17, daughter of a family friend, could accompany Shivaji in the Ferrari. Around 9:30 a.m., as they drove back along NH6 near the Pakuria flyover, tragedy struck. According to police and forensic reports, a truck ahead suddenly slowed or changed lanes. In response, Shivaji swerved sharply to the right and braked hard. The Ferrari, traveling at an estimated 120 to 130 kilometers per hour, lost control. Skid marks stretched over 210 feet. The car slammed into the iron guardrails of the flyover, and a thick metal bar pierced the engine and drove into Shivaji's chest. Though airbags deployed, the sheer force of the impact shattered vital organs, puncturing his lungs and liver. The Ferrari's dashboard and bonnet were destroyed. The car was found locked in comfort mode, indicating the speed had been electronically limited, but that was not enough to prevent the devastating outcome. Shivaji survived the initial crash and remained conscious inside the wreck for nearly an hour. Eyewitnesses reported him groaning in pain and repeatedly saying he couldn't breathe. Emergency responders lacked the proper tools to cut open the Ferrari structure and were forced to use a crane to extract him. By the time he arrived at Calcutta Medical Research Institute, doctors pronounced him dead. His co-passenger Ashna Surana suffered serious injuries and was admitted in critical condition to a hospital in Iqbalpur. The forensic investigation noted that the needle of the speedometer was stuck at 130 kilometers per hour, suggesting the car might have been moving even faster before impact. Officials plan to consult Ferrari engineers in Italy to retrieve electronic crash data, similar to a flight black box, which could confirm the vehicle's exact behavior in the seconds before the crash. In the meantime, the absence of CCTV footage and lack of license plate information from the truck in question hindered further investigation. Shivaji's death shocked Kolkata's business and automotive communities. Many who knew him found it hard to believe that a careful, trained driver, someone who had even taken circuit driving courses at the Boot International Circuit, could be involved in such a crash. Friends described him as disciplined on the road despite his passion for speed. His loss was deeply felt by friends, colleagues, and his family, especially his son, who narrowly escaped the accident by switching cars. In the aftermath, questions have been raised about traffic conditions on NH6 and the Durgapur Expressway. Reports have pointed to frequent violations involving illegally parked trucks, lane switching, cattle crossing, and lax enforcement of traffic laws. Shivaji's death has only intensified scrutiny on these roads, and for some it has become a grim symbol of the dangers that even the most experienced drivers face on India's highways.
It's because the truck had slowed down, changed lanes, leaving the guy.
On a warm August evening in North London, an ordinary family outing took a devastating turn, one that would leave a young girl's life cut tragically short, and a community searching for answers. Behind the wheel of a powerful luxury car was a man whose night of excess would end in irreversible consequences. What followed was a chain of events marked by recklessness and unimaginable loss. Anya Patel was part of a close-knit family who had been enjoying a normal evening on August 20th, 2022, an evening which included dinner in Wembley, followed by a spontaneous stop at a McDonald's for ice cream. Their plans were simple and joyful. She was seated in the rear of the family's red Vauxhall Astra alongside her parents and brother, unaware of the danger rapidly approaching from behind. Edward Tully, a 30-year-old trader from St. John's Wood, had spent the same evening at Proud Embankment, a cabaret venue in central London. CCTV footage later showed Tully drinking repeatedly over the course of 2 hours, at least 20 times from glasses filled with Prosecco and champagne. The receipt revealed he spent over £1,500 on food and drink, including 5 bottles of Veuve Clicquot Rosé. Impaired but undeterred, Tully got behind the wheel of his black Bentley Continental convertible and began driving home through North London streets at speeds between 56 and 60 miles per hour, nearly double the legal limit for the area. Tully ran 4 red lights and, at a junction in Barnet, overtook another vehicle at speed. As he did, his Bentley slammed into the rear side of the Astra that Anya's mother was driving. The violent impact spun the car 460 degrees across the junction before it rolled backwards into a pedestrian barrier. The Bentley then struck a post on a traffic island. Anya was found unconscious, not breathing, and severely injured. Her father, seated beside her, sustained serious spinal injuries. Her mother and brother, though less physically harmed, were left screaming for help at the scene. Witnesses quickly responded. One passerby used tools to cut Anya's seatbelt and began CPR. Emergency responders arrived and succeeded in restarting her heart, but she remained unconscious and unable to breathe on her own. She was transferred to the Royal London Hospital and placed in pediatric intensive care. Despite all efforts, she died 3 days later from unsurvivable injuries that included brain and spinal trauma, internal organ damage, a fractured pelvis, and broken arms. Tully fled on foot immediately after the crash, returning to his flat in Princess Park Manor. There, he called his father, who picked him up and removed him from the area. Although DNA evidence on the Bentley's airbag tied Tully to the driver's seat, he only surrendered to police the next day at Colindale Station. Due to his flight, the precise extent of his alcohol impairment could not be assessed. Prosecutors described his decision to flee as cowardly and callous, and CCTV captured him making a dismissive gesture from the Bentley immediately following the crash. At trial, Tully pleaded guilty to causing death by dangerous driving and causing serious injury by dangerous driving. In July 2024, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison and disqualified from driving for 13 years. He must serve 2/3 of his sentence before being eligible for release. The emotional aftermath has been harrowing. Anya's mother described the loss of her daughter as the destruction of her entire world, noting that their once joyful family life had been reduced to pain and suffering. Her father, still in a neck brace from his spinal injuries, expressed helplessness and despair, saying there was no longer any desire to live. Her brother, struggling with grief, described his existence as hollow and devoid of emotion. The judge condemned Tully's actions and criticized those who assisted his escape. He emphasized the magnitude of the loss and the suffering inflicted on the family, and had simply been trying to enjoy a quiet evening. Despite the sentence, Anya's family said that no punishment could undo what had happened, and the pain they carry will never fade. In the stillness of a Melbourne night, a single moment would change lives forever, shattering hopes and leaving unanswered questions in its wake. What began as an ordinary drive turned into a tragedy that would haunt a community and tear a family apart. As a young woman's bright future was abruptly and devastatingly cut short. In early June 2025, Arshdeep Kaur was a dedicated student at Victoria University, a young woman who had traveled from India to Australia with hopes of building a promising career and life abroad. Described by loved ones as kind and full of life, Arshdeep embodied the aspirations of many international students striving to create a better future. Her family regarded her as someone with big dreams,